Hello, my name is James Halderson, and I am the lead developer of the Virtua-Cash project. Um, just want to make a video on the last part of the Genesis generator, talking through the encrypting all the notes within one folder and then encrypting the whole folder, which is also part of how the wallet application's backend will work. Um, and I just want to go through some of the context there, as well as start looking at the future of the project and where we're going to go from here. So first things first, let's just run our app here, and we're running. We can see our blockchain is here, right? Everything like that. Where's my folder? Okay, so the first thing first, we got our generated notes here. I generated, these are all one credit notes. It used to have a folder. I just deleted the folder because I was testing that it has to be in here, right? But so when you generate the notes, it generates them and it puts them into these subfolders, these subcategories. But they don't have to be inside these folders. I was actually originally, when I was testing everything, was, oh, the generated notes folder, what's the path for that? So I just move everything out into here when I'm testing things. But so anyways, so these notes, we showed last time that we can encrypt an image, decrypt an image, and then after it was encrypted and decrypted, we could still validate that digital signature that exists within the note stenographically. So I'm just going to run encrypted notes here. And when I run this, you can see that it does a bunch of stuff here. And we come back over, and all these notes, you can no longer use them, just like the one note that I showed in the last video. But this is just a workflow that I worked on to get every single note within that folder, which we're calling generated notes here. But in the actual implementation of it, it will be your storage, your note storage, where all these notes are held. So we have all these notes are now encrypted, and you can't use them, you can't do anything with them, they're in .dat format. What I came up with, though, is that actually I could just encrypt this whole folder, right? Like, I can just encrypt the whole folder, and the notes inside them are already encrypted, so you're like double layer encryption. It's not just one layer of encryption, it's double layer of AES encryption with two different keys. And the complexity of that, like for somebody to try to steal the money out, is just not possible, right? You'd have to have both of these keys, and these keys are constantly rotating, and it's the whole idea of the mutational state and the infinite state machine. So we're just gonna do encrypt notes here. Not encrypt notes, sorry. Encrypt folder. And that will create this generated notes.dat thing. It might have already been there, but it's in there now. So the note folder still existed. That's because, of course, when you're encrypting, decrypting something, you're actually making a copy and copying all the data over. But copying it, you've somehow manipulated those bytes, that byte array, you've manipulated it in different ways so that it's not the same as the original copy, right? So I didn't delete the folder yet. I'm still working on that. All I gotta do really is just implement something that says, hey, when this is done, delete the source folder, right? So it's not that difficult. But I haven't done that yet because I still wanted to be able to go, and like I was looking at things along the way. Anyways, so we have the generated notes folder.dat now. So this generated notes folder actually contain, like, this is not usable. I can't open this, right? Ask me what kind do I want to open it with, whatever. It's all protected. So this is how it exists inside the application itself as well. It'll, like, also the notes will exist this way in the virtual central bank vault, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. But when you do want to use your notes, right, you would say decrypt notes. Not you would say this is what would be going on in the background. This will be all automated. And when I say decrypt notes, sorry, I gotta decrypt the folder first, sorry. Decrypt folder. And we'll see I deleted that folder, but it's back now at the bottom here, right? So then we delete this one, whatever. That's what the program will do. It'll delete it, right? And then we can see in here that within that folder, you have all the different denominations of notes, but they're still encrypted, right? So then the next step would be to decrypt the notes within that folder. And then all of these notes will come back and they're usable again. I can view them, right? I can come grab a random one. I don't know, whatever one, doesn't matter. We'll go with the $500 one. Why not? And I can say rename. And I'm just going to take this here. And this is just to validate, like the validate workflow. So we say validate. Oh, I pressed space. And we put that in. And then lo and behold, it takes this one and it goes and it decrypts that message, the digital signature. And that digital signature says this is a legitimate note generated by the Genesis generation event, denomination of 500 credits. So what did we look at there just briefly here? This is just quick compared with the other ones. We see here that we have our notes, right? We encrypted each one of the notes inside the folder. We then encrypt the entire folder, right? And then it exists in that encrypted state. And you have to have both of those AES keys. You have to have two separate keys to get back here. And these keys aren't known to the user. Only the transfer key that is going to be used for when distributing the notes, it will be converted into base 16 hexadecimal, like we were talking about in the last video, like a week or 2 weeks ago, whatever. But within the actual application itself, it's not known to the user. It's just constantly rotating out keys and changing keys. It's always mutating, and the reason why is so that your assets are safe within your wallet. Okay, so that's that for just demonstrating how this works. We're going to move on to bringing up our image here. And, okay, so I just wanted to make sure that I was still recording. I tried to do this once and it stopped recording on me halfway, so, whew. Alright, so that's the Genesis generator. It's basically completed. I could run it and get, I'm going to, instead of doing a couple hundred, I'm going to run like for 1 million or a couple million, whatever. I don't know exactly what the amount is yet, but some number of millions of notes. And then when those notes are created, again, that workflow that we just seen there where it's signed to that blockchain, that anybody can look at that blockchain, that's going to be out on the web. The digital signature and the creation event are put onto that blockchain, and the blockchain is immutable. The digital signatures are created with a private key that will then be destroyed after the Genesis generation event happens. The real one, not these test ones, but the real one. That private key that created it is destroyed forever. And then these Maui wallet apps made in .NET MAUI, that's why it says MAUI, but it's going to be made in .NET MAUI. That's not the name of the app. It's going to be the framework used to create the app. These will contain the public key that is able to decrypt that digital signature. Okay, so everybody's wallet app is able to decrypt it and validate notes. So everybody is like a validator node, self-validating, because nobody's able to ever produce notes again. The only way a note can be legitimate is if it has that validation signature that also tells you which denomination it was, when it was created, blah blah. All that information has to line up for it to be considered valid, and that's the validation workflow. The virtual central bank, I'm just using the word central bank because um, it's not really a central bank. Like if you think about the Federal Reserve, um, they can print money whenever they want. They cause inflation, blah blah blah, because they keep printing money. There's nothing stopping them from creating new assets. There's the whole fractional reserve banking scheme. This is a discussion for another time. Maybe I'll make a video just on my thoughts about that, uh, and why I was inspired to make this whole project in the first place. But for now, it's not a real central bank. It's not printing new things. There's only one generation event, and then the private key is destroyed. That's the idea. But I'm putting them into a central bank vault. I'm calling it a bank vault, where it'll be like a backend database that holds that encrypted folder until the notes are distributed. When it's distributed, the note will be decrypted temporarily and then encrypted with a transfer key, and that will be given to the person in hex format. And they'll go and they'll take it within the wallet application, and it'll be like, give me your transfer key, right? And you'll put your transfer key in almost like a registration key. And when that transfer key is in there, then it'll download your allotment of notes from the virtual central bank. So it's an encrypted note store, note sales and distribution. It's the back end for that whole workflow, and fiat and crypto purchases. Right now, when I'm making this, it's February 5th, 2026. So if you're watching this anytime around then, you know that crypto is kind of shit in the bed. And that's a good thing from my perspective, because I want to kind of introduce this idea, and it's to get away from the central banks, get away from KYC, get away from regulation, from censorship, total anonymity, total decentralization, the real decentralization away from networks. So watching the other ones come down actually kind of inspires me to work on this harder, because I want to kind of be, there's going to be a void there, and there's going to be a need, a necessity, and I think I have the product for that necessity. But anyways, we're going to look at the web portal here. So the web portal, this is the front end, this is the back end. I realized I would have to make two different applications, one that's device based and one that is web portal based. So the web portal, you can view the project info and see the white paper. You can buy the notes, either with fiat or crypto, and you can view the Genesis blockchain. Now, this whole thing here, this is what I'm thinking about doing, because when I started this project, it's like a hobby thing. It's just like I could see the economic crisis coming. I could see it. I could feel it for years and years, and I wrote about it, and I was like, I want to do something different and try to maybe be there to fill the void when it happens, right? So what I thought about doing is, that's what I thought about, but it's just like a hobby project, right? I'm not backed by anybody. I'm just doing this in my spare time. I don't even really have that much money to fund something like this. It's just something that I thought would be very useful. So the idea is that, like, to get a valuation for how much notes are worth, I'll create a 3-month vesting period, right? And an accumulation period where people can pledge towards notes, and those notes will then distribute based on a valuation that is taken from that. So let's say like one note is 1 cent. It starts at, let's say, like one credit is 1 cent. So a 1 credit note you'd get one for 1 cent, let's say. Okay? And then somebody, like someone puts $10 in for 1,000, somebody puts $100 in, somebody whatever, and then whatever that valuation at the end, the difference, right, from the like how much has been raised and then how many notes I have to distribute, I would then take like the amount of money I raised divided by the amount of notes I have to distribute, get like a rough estimate for like how much each note is actually worth individually, and then distribute notes, like here's a 5, here's a 20, whatever, based on how much your allotted investment into the project actually equates in the fiat currency that's sitting there, right? So, you know, if nobody contributes, nobody pledges, it'll be worth 1 cent, right? If a lot of people jump on board and there's a large contribution, that 1 cent could become like a one credit note. It's like worth $100 or something. I don't know, whatever it ends up being. And that web portal part of it will be done. This is the last part when I'm more ready to go. Right now, I've got the Genesis generator. The functionality works. It's just a console app. That's all it needs to be. It's just for me to, you know, type things in and make the mechanics in the back and the software mechanisms do their thing, right? But the next step I will be working on is to work on a Maui wallet app in .NET MAUI. That's what this means, which is the secure storage, the offline custodial wallet, and it initiates transactions with NFC and QR to open transfer pipelines. So the next thing I'm going to be working on is probably start. I'm an Android user. I'll probably start with Android, and I have a couple Android devices sitting around. Right, I'm going to try, you know, working with it, creating the NFC QR initiation and the Bluetooth transfer between devices, the device-to-device transfer workflow. And one like that's the fundamental skeleton here is custodial wallet that holds these notes, and then device-to-device transfer. Once I have those two things done, then I can start thinking about building a web portal for others to see the project, for it to have more visibility on the web. I might make like social media accounts for it and all the, you know, the whole thing. Um, so yeah, phase one, Genesis generator seems to be done. Virtual Central Bank and web portal is going to be last phase. Next thing I'm working on, Maui app, device-to-device transfer. This is pointing back at the Virtual Central Bank, and the reason why that is because one last thing I will mention here before I wrap up this video. The last thing I want to talk about here is that device to device is the whole idea as a bearer instrument, right? Like I can tap with somebody or, you know, scan their QR code and then I can initiate a transfer right there in proximity. And that's the whole idea, is like if I hand somebody $20 in cash, right? It's kind of emulating how cash and physical fiat currency and money works, but in a digital format. Virtua-Cash, right? That's the name of the project. So going from there, I thought about, okay, well, what if people around the world want to transfer money to each other, but they don't have any way of meeting up, right? Like say I'm across the world in Australia or something, and you're in the United States or Canada. How am I gonna make a transaction with you? So I thought about that, and though the idea is for direct offline transfers, I have thought about recently maybe adding functionality to the web portal that simulates a device-to-device transfer. And what that would entail, just briefly here, the way I've thought about it so far is that like both devices would have to be present. It's not like I send it to a random address, right? And then that address can go get it whenever. So what would have to happen is that you would have had to have prior communicated this with this other person. And I log into the website, or, you know, verify my device on one side, they verify the device on the other side, and it facilitates a temporary SSL handshake, sorry, or whatever, between the devices with a transfer key, and I can do that transaction over the internet. Of course, this is not the ideal way of doing it. That's not the idea. I just thought about it might be a disadvantage, but the main idea, it might be a disadvantage not to have some kind of online transfer mechanism, even though that's not the primary idea. But the idea is, if we look at what's going on in the world right now with economics and the way that the system is kind of faltering, and there's been large protests and attempted revolutions across the world, and then what happens, you look at Iran and what happened there. They just turned off the internet, right? They shut off the lights one day and there's nothing you can do about it. And I thought about that like on a larger scale, like, here in the West, I'm in Canada, but here in the West, we think we're isolated from that kind of situation when we're really not. Like, it could happen, wartime could happen, a totalitarian regime could happen here. It's not off limits. It's just that, we've been pretty democratic and liberal up until this point, and then lo and behold, tomorrow you have a dictator and he turns off the internet. Okay, how do I, transact with people without the internet, right? The entire thing comes to a standstill. And just like right now, I'm recording on February 5th, 2026. Right now, there's a big crypto crash happening. The markets are all messed up. People are selling off everywhere. There's so much uncertainty inside of the markets. And for me, this feels like excellent. Like, not to do some Schadenfreude and think about people suffering. That's not what it's about. It's about the idea that I perhaps have a tool or something that can fill in that gap and help people to still have markets and have underground markets and engage in capitalism and all of these ideas without being sanctioned by some government or organizations or central exchanges and KYC, and you got to pay taxes on it all. It's all nonsense, right? It's just so the established system can keep control. And the entire idea of this whole thing is to get away from that kind of control structure, to have real decentralized finance, to have almost like a proletarian, you know, economic system for the plebs, for regular people, that isn't determined and defined by some power that be out there that has the power to hit the switch tomorrow and you lose everything, right? We want to move away from that. We don't want to move towards it, and technology is moving us towards it. So why not be the person that creates a tool that moves you away from it? So that's it. That's my little blurb there on the state of the world. I could feel it coming. I wrote this, not wrote this. I started this project because I knew it was coming. And I wanted to potentially help humanity get out of that situation and have a better alternative, a better way forward. So that's just me, that's my philanthropic way of thinking about things. I don't really have again, I don't really have the money to fund this myself. It's just an idea, and hopefully it catches on. Hopefully people really want to see some kind of alternative system, and I'd be happy to build that. So alright, that's the end of the video for today. If you watch this, like my videos, follow me along on social media, or subscribe, whatever. Um, Help me promote the idea when it comes time to do so. I'll be back with a video probably in a couple weeks showing the Maui application. So thank you for tuning in if you watch this. I appreciate it. That's it for today. Bye-bye.